I wanted to pick up on something you said about what he said to you about the opening match being as important as the main event, because it wasn't long ago. Obviously, I'm recording from the UK. I became a fan of professional wrestling in 1992. And I've recently had Bushwhacker Luke was on this show, and we talked about how you guys obviously opened up SummerSlam 1992, yourself, the Bushwhackers, the Nasty Boys, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and you had the honour of that wild six-man match was the first match. And Luke was saying to me about how you didn't really have to do you didn't have to do much in that match. Like the audience were just so ready for you. What was it like performing in front of 80,000 British fans?
That was in Wembley, right?
Wembley Stadium.
That was in Wembley.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was Hacksaw Jim Duggan and the Bushwhackers against the Nasty Boys and me, right?
Yeah,
that it?
That's
the
right.
Mountie?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I remember. And yeah, but in those days, how can I say that? It was the best era of wrestling in the 80s, and the best era. And we had this motto: less is more. Like today they're going 1,000 miles an hour doing 1,000 things that mean nothing. In our days, we'd the guy would run into the Hacksaw Jim Duggan. I'd shoot him off in the ropes, and he'd give me a tackle, just a simple tackle. And I'd take a crazy bump to the floor, and I'd be like, oh, my God. And then I'd roll out of the ring, and I'd go in Jimmy Hart's arms, and I'd hug him and get some comfort. And the guys on the outside are going, hey! And then you have the Nasty Boys are going, hey, what's that? And then jumping. We did one move, but we did so much interaction with the crowd that we had time for the crowd to be part of us. We brought a lot of empathy in our wrestling those days. Yeah, a chance for the crowd to feel how we feel. It wasn't going too fast, and so and I remember having matches like some matches that were incredible. We had some marathon matches with Raymond and I against the Rockers, Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels, and we did 1 hour matches, and it's like the ones who win the most fall, but 7, 8, 10 minutes were gone in the match, and we never touched yet. Like, I'm going to give you an example. This is amazing how less is more. So we get in the ring, me and Sean, we're face to face, and we go to lock up. And as we go to lock up, I said, whoa, wait a minute, back him up, ref, back him up. And then they'd back him up. And then I just lay down on the ground, and I do a nip up, what you call, just land back on my feet, straight from my back. And then I'd look at the crowd like, huh? How's that? And then I'd look at Sean and say, why don't you try it, big boy? And then he'd look at me, hey, let's wrestle. I said, no, come. And then I'd lay back on the ground again. I'd do another one to show him, what? Are you afraid? I'd do the chicken thing. I said, come on, you try that. So finally he'd look at the crowd, and the crowd would be right behind him already going like, come on, Sean, come on. So Sean would go down and he'd do it. And 20,000 people, when he did it, would pop like, yeah, okay, let's go. So now we start. So now we turn in the ring, turning face to face. I go to lock up with him, but I go underneath him. I duck underneath, and I said, wait a minute. So I get out of the ring. I get on the apron. I put my hands on the rope, and then I flip over the top rope, and I land on my feet. And that's an acrobatic move. And then I go like this, and how about that one? You think you're so good. How about that one? And so then he'd go like, come on, ref, let's do the wrestling. And then I'd go, chicken. And the 20,000 people would be booing me like really bad. Yeah. And then I'd say, come on. So finally, he'd get out of the ring, and he'd put his hands on the ropes, and then he'd do a flip. And then when he did the flip, land on his feet, simple flip, 20,000 people are on their feet cheering, like, yeah. So now we turn around like we're going to finally make our first contact. Yeah. And then we go to lock up. Then he ducks underneath me. So I go straight through. I miss him. And then he goes, wait a minute. So he climbs up 1, 2, 3 ropes. He gets on the top rope. And then there's a full back flip in the air from the top rope and lands in the middle of the ring. And then he looks at me and he goes like, why don't you try that? And people went nuts. Like, people were going nuts. And I was like, and I'm looking at Raymond like, and then Raymond's like, don't do it. I'm going like, I could do it, Ray. I could do it. So then I start climbing up the rope, shaking. My feet are shaking, going up second, third rope, second rope, third rope, second rope. Not sure I'm going to do it. And then finally I just jump down, and then the people would roar, like, and then we'd start the match. But 10 minutes was gone in the match. We never touched.
No,
but and we had the people when you had the people on their feet.
And that was the wrestling I grew up on. That was the World Wrestling Federation for me, early 90s. That was what I was used to, and that's what I absolutely loved. And it's that kind of very slow-paced storytelling, isn't it, where you get really, really involved with the characters and their facial expressions, and
the interaction with the crowd was amazing.
Yeah.
And another thing too in those days, you got to remember, another thing that was amazing in those days. And if I'm pulling out my bragging rights here, I'm going to try not to do it too much. but I'll tell you, we are recognized, Raymond and I, as one by Jimmy Hart and by many, the best heel team ever for getting heat behind the referee's back. Like, we didn't go for the cheap heat. Like, go to the person that was overweight beside the ring and say, you fatso, and then get the people boo. That wasn't our kind of heat. Our kind of heat was something where we're working as a team. Example, I had Bret Hart down, and we were against Anvil Neidhart, Bret Hart, me and Raymond, and I had Bret Hart. We're working on him, and then finally we're getting them some good steam on him, and we're really hurting him bad. And then at one point, Raymond would have a hold on Bret, let's say, and Bret would start crawling towards this corner like he wants to tag Anvil. And then next thing you know, I'd run into the ring.
Yeah.
But when I run into the ring, I'd scream, hey, 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 hey. So the referee would see me, so he'd turn around and he'd come and push me out. But when he'd push me out, Bret would tag Anvil in that time. And then when I'd say, okay, I'm getting out. So as soon as I'd get out, the referee turned around, and then he'd go stop Anvil.
Yeah.
So because Anvil, they didn't see the tag, so he'd push Anvil out. But in the meantime, me and Raymond switched illegally and then did a double move at the same time. And then when the referee turned around, I'd have a move on Bret. And then the referee would turn around like, hey, you weren't the legal guy. And then I'd look at the people, I'd say, that's the people we tagged. That's the people we tagged. And we did things. All the heat we did was behind the referee's back. So we didn't put the heat on the referee. We put the heat on us. Like, we were smart. Not the referee was dumb. And that's what we were known for, that kind of heat. So we had some very, very serious heat as heels, Raymond and I, and as a tag team. And it was fun working with all those great workers.